You can have you.
Main event of the evening.
Ready to race to you. These days are
Hello and welcome to These Days Are Ours, a Happy Days podcast. I'm Peter.
And I'm Joe.
And today we are discussing the first episode of the short-lived 1994 sitcom Monty, starring Henry Winkler, Here Comes the Sun, S-O-N.
Okay, Peter, tell us what happens in Here Comes the Sun.
Monty Richardson is a Long Island talk show host with a toadying assistant, Clifford Walker, and a fed-up producer, Rita Simon.
Let's move it along.
On today's episode, he finds out about a letter in the paper criticizing his animal rights stance, written by an Ann Sherman, and he decides to bring her on the next show to debate her. Then he rants about how the Democrats aren't hard enough on immigration, complete with lots of anti-Arab dog whistles.
Some guy comes over here with a bomb in his burnous, who belongs to some wacko cult who tells him that America is the great Satan,
and promotes his Find a Blind Date for Janet Reno contest. He also talks about his son Greg, a Yale graduate who is coming home after a months-long trip in Europe. Then we get the introduction, which is not a traditional theme song, it's a bunch of people on the street being asked about him and giving varying reactions.
I think he's a nut.
I think he's absolutely gorgeous.
Monty returns home, where he's frustrated by his teenage son David not watching his show. David protests that he hears enough about Monty at school, where his teachers and friends all hate him. His wife Fran comes home from her job as a teacher, also excited to see Greg again, but too tired to make the American dinner Monty wants to treat Greg to.
I was hoping that we could give him like an American meal, you know?
Okay, we could go out for Chinese.
Greg returns home, but he's not alone. He's brought Gina, a girl he met in Germany whose nose ring horrifies Monty. Greg also volunteers to make dinner. Gina's been teaching him vegetarian cooking. Monty takes offense to that, and David claims cooking is for girls, until Gina tells him that women are very attracted to men who cook.
Women are incredibly attracted to men who can cook.
Let me show you the new spice rack.
Monty and Gina are left alone, where Gina explains she's an artist who cuts hair as a day job. She met Greg at her one-woman show in Berlin, in which he appeared naked. Seizing on this, Monty calls her a stripper and accuses her of taking financial advantage of Greg. Gina tells him he looks fat on TV. On Monty's next show, he complains about Gina, and then Rita brings in Ann Sherman, who turns out to be 11 years old.
You wrote the letter to the editor?
Yes, sir.
Are you sure that your mommy is not Ann Sherman?
No. My mother's name is Patricia Sherman.
She accuses him of encouraging all the bad people out there who just want to hurt animals, and says that God will be very mad at him for that. When Monty gets home, Greg is making vegetarian lasagna for dinner, and Gina makes fun of Monty for losing a debate to a child. Monty is won over by the lasagna, at least until Greg confesses his plan to attend culinary school.
I know it doesn't sound masculine, but I found my dream and it's in the kitchen.
Monty insults Gina again, leading to a shouting match, which Fran diffuses by ordering everyone to raise their hand if they want to speak. Greg goes first, announcing that he and Gina are getting married. Monty says he didn't spend all this time and money molding Greg's future for him to throw it away. He's going back to law school, and Gina is going back to the mothership. Greg decides that he and Gina are leaving then. Fran admits to Monty that Greg had already told her all about his and Gina's plans, and he had asked her not to tell Monty. She reminds him that her parents hated Monty when they first met him too.
They thought you were crude and uneducated and that I had stooped to someone who was beneath me.
Okay, Fran, I remember the wedding invitation.
And says this is exactly the same. Later that night, Gina returns to the house to talk to Monty. Greg desperately needs Monty's approval, which is the only reason Gina is kind of trying to make nice with him, especially since she's estranged from her own father.
And I have not seen him in years.
Monty runs into Greg as he's leaving the house with his things, where Greg affirms his love for cooking and for Gina. Monty says, okay, surprising him. Father and son hug. Monty's not quite ready to start hugging Gina, though. Monty has one more debate on his show with Ann Sherman.
The last time you were here, we were talking about animal experimentation. Well, this time, I am prepared with documentation.
Where he defends animal experimentation by talking about its role in finding cures for all the diseases that have killed and crippled thousands of children. Anne starts crying, and Monty futilely tries to comfort her. They go to commercial, and Anne immediately stops crying and tells Monty the viewers are going to hate him. Over the end credits, Monty's family and friends insult or backhandedly compliment him in various ways.
Oh, he's a wonderful friend. Not mine, but I've heard.
Thank you, Peter. That was Here Comes the Sun, the first aired episode of Monty. It originally aired on Tuesday, January 11th, 1994 at 8 o'clock on the Fox network.
He's the most conservative talk show host on television. But after a hard day at work, he comes home to a house full of radical kids. Henry Winkler is Monty, a new Fox comedy premiering Tuesday at 8, 7 Central.
Monty was followed by a new episode of Rock called Citizen Rock, in which the title character runs for public office in an effort to reduce crime in his neighborhood. ABC won the time slot with a new episode of Full House called The Test, in which DJ worries about taking the SATs. Vanna White guest stars as herself. CBS had a new episode of Rescue 911 with William Shatner. This week's episode had 4 segments: Wave Runner Down, Paragliding Peril, Cops Son Shooting, and Baby on Board.
Baby on board, something, something, Burt Ward. This thing writes itself.
And NBC aired a new episode of Saved by the Bell, The College Years, called Bedside Manor. In this episode, Zach gets a job at the Student Health Center in order to be closer to Kelly and distract her from her crush on a professor. So of all those shows, Peter, did any of that appeal to you?
Rescue 911. This is the first that I'm hearing of this, and it sounds amazing. And William Shatner is there. So that's what I'm choosing.
It was a pretty amazing show. It was reenactments of various exciting 911 calls. Paragliding Peril. I mean, how can you go wrong with that? Monty lasted less than 2 months on the Fox schedule before being canceled. In all, 13 episodes were produced, but only 6 ever aired. And among the episodes that didn't air was the pilot. Do you think that this show deserved longer on the Fox schedule than it got?
Nothing in this episode really felt necessary, and I think they really misjudged how unlikable Monty should be.
I think we goofed.
Here Comes the Sun was directed by James Burrows, a TV director and producer from Los Angeles. James was one of the giants of situation comedy, extremely active in the medium from the mid-1970s to the 2020s, an 11-time Emmy winner. James directed episodes of such classics as
The Mary Tyler Moore Show, The Bob Newhart Show, Taxi, Will and Grace, Frasier, Cheers, Friends, and too many more to count.
He was actually one of the co-creators of Cheers. In 2016, he was honored by NBC with a primetime special called Must See TV, an all-star tribute to James Burrows. He died in June 2026 at the age of 85. Peter, were you surprised to see the name James Burrows on this episode?
I was a little bit. I don't think that the direction in this episode is top-tier sitcom work. It's pretty workmanlike, but kudos to Burrows for being here.
I think this was Fox's way of showing confidence in the series. We're bringing in the top sitcom director to direct this.
We calling in the pros now.
We're giving this every possible chance to succeed. Here Comes the Sun was written by series creator Mark Lawrence. Mark is a writer, director, and producer from Brooklyn.
Okay, you guys, whenever I point at you, you say Brooklyn.
Who was active in film and television from the mid-1980s to the 2010s. He got his start writing for Family Ties in 1984, penning 30 episodes plus the made-for-TV movie Family Ties Vacation. His film scripts include
Life with Mikey, Miss Congeniality 1 and 2, 2 Weeks Notice, Music and Lyrics, and Did You Hear About the Morgans?
He's the creator of 2 very short-lived sitcoms, this one and Pride and Joy, which ran on NBC for 6 weeks in 1995. So he had another 6-week sitcom the very next year.
I can't take over the show for 6 weeks. I can't even take over my own life for 6 weeks.
Do any of those credits stand out to you? The one that seems meaningful to me is Family Ties, because it has the generational conflict between parents and kids.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot watching this about All in the Family, but there's definitely some shades of Family Ties in that generational political divide too.
As for our main cast, obviously, we have to start with Henry Winkler as Monty Richardson.
And while you're on the phone, we'll play Pin the Lie on the Democrat.
In the decade following Happy Days, Henry largely left acting and reinvented himself as a producer and director. He directed the movies Memories of Me and Cop and a Half. He was also an executive producer on the TV show MacGyver, which ran from 1985 to 1992.
Oh, MacGyver's gay.
Henry eventually reestablished himself as an actor on such shows as Parks and Rec, Arrested Development, and Barry, for which he won an Emmy, plus the movie The Waterboy. This was trumpeted as his return to acting. So, Peter, what did you think of Henry Winkler as Monty Richardson?
As Monty Richardson, the loudmouth host of a conservative talk show, Winkler is definitely playing against type because at this point, basically everybody knows him as the Fonz, the superhuman gruff bad boy with a heart of gold. And I think it's entirely understandable understandable that he would want to take a role that would show his range if he was going to return to acting. We are very fond of his performance as Fonzie. I think it is one of the great sitcom performances, but at the same time, if you play any role for over a decade, it's going to be kind of frustrating if you get pigeonholed in that role. And I think that Winkler acquits himself very well here as Monty. I found him believable in the role. I think the problem was that I just did not like the character. The character is intentionally unlikable. Like, we are supposed to come away from it thinking, oh, Monty, you jerk. And we are also supposed to be, like, touched when he does ultimately reconcile with his son. But I don't know. Looking at the All in the Family comparison again, you look at Archie Bunker, and it helps that Archie is just some guy. He's not a professional political commentator or anything. He's just a guy who has some ignorant opinions that he still believes very strongly in. Meanwhile, Monty is like Glenn Beck.
I think one of the problems with this script is that it doesn't have a consistent attitude toward Monty. I think we're supposed to see him as a jerk, but sometimes it feels like we're supposed to be rooting for him. And when he says something outrageous, we're supposed to love it. Like when his other son says he doesn't cook and he says, that's my son.
No thanks. Cooking's for girls.
This is my son.
I think we're supposed to be cheering for him in some situations. Did you feel like there was moments when we were supposed to be on Monty's side?
I'm not sure. Like you said, it is tonally very weird. It feels like every other character in this pretty consistently hates him, which feels unrealistic. If he's a professional talk show host, surely there would be more people around him who do agree with him politically, right?
Well, we'll talk about them. He has a producer who hates him and a sidekick who just toadies up to him for professional reasons. But he also has a family, which we will now get to. We will start with David Schwimmer as Greg Richardson.
Let's see now. Gosh, I've been away so long. You are...
A film and television actor from Los Angeles, David was just a few months away from his breakthrough role as Ross Geller on Friends. When he appeared on Monty, he'd already had recurring roles on The Wonder Years and L.A. Law, and appeared in a handful of feature films too, including Wolf, Flight of the Intruder, and Crossing the Bridge. While Schwimmer loved working with Henry Winkler, he has said that Monty was overall a miserable experience that almost made him quit acting. Aww. Peter, what did you think of David Schwimmer as Greg Richardson?
David Schwimmer's performance here is pleasant and mild, in contrast to Winkler's more forceful and aggressive Monty. I think it's fine, but I do think it means that he gets overshadowed by Winkler and by China Cantner as Gina. In the All in the Family comparison, he is the Gloria of the show, but Gloria felt like much more of a force of personality in All in the Family compared to Greg. And it is interesting that in this episode, there's nothing really political about his conflict with Monty. It is purely about Greg's love for cooking and love for his fiancée. Maybe I'm silly for bringing that up, but you've established that Monty is a professional political commentator, so I'm going to bring it up.
I think David was probably miserable on this show because he's given such a weak and passive character to play on Monty. He's no real opposition to his father. He's not really given much of a personality. He's never really given much that's really funny to say. So I can imagine David being miserable on this show. We also had Kate Burton as Fran Richardson.
Monty, I had no time to go shopping. I had student-teacher conferences. I had spelling tests to grade. Little Jimmy Whittaker crazy glued a nostril shut in arts and crafts. I had to...
Kate is the daughter of acting legend Richard Burton. She was born in Switzerland and cameoed in her father's movie Anne of a Thousand Days in 1969, but her film and TV career didn't really start until the mid-1980s. She's been working very steadily since then. Her TV credits include
Modern Family, Homeland, Grey's Anatomy, This Is Us, and many more.
Her movies include
127 Hours, Big Trouble in Little China, The First Wives Club, Unfaithful, and Dumb Money.
Peter, what did you think of Kate Burton as Fran Richardson?
On the one hand, I appreciated that in this TV show, she has a job. I feel like if you look at a lot of sitcoms up to a certain point, and shows that are kind of parodying sitcoms, you know, like The Simpsons or Family Guy, what have you, generally speaking, the wife will be a housewife, and she will not have a job. And I appreciated that Fran in this does have a job. She is a school teacher. That being said, other than that, she is a pretty basic, sensible wife compared to her more comic husband. She's just such a sensible, down-to-earth person that I was left wondering, how did she get married to Monty. What's the story here? How does she feel about politics?
I wonder, we really don't get much of a sense of her personality. She's here to be the voice of reason and to be the sensible, nice parent. And I don't think that's really a fun part to play, but Kate plays it pretty well, I would say. It's not the kind of role I think that actresses dream of getting. We also have David Krumholtz as David Richardson.
My teachers hate you. My friends hate you. You know how Mom feels.
David is a New York actor who is instantly recognizable as Bernard, the head elf from the Santa Claus movies.
Did you or did you not read the card?
Yeah, I read the card.
Then you're the new Santa.
He's been working very steadily in TV and film since the early 90s. His movie credits include
Oppenheimer, Superbad, 10 Things I Hate About You, Sausage Party, Walk Hard, and many more.
Peter, what did you think of David Krumholtz as David Richardson?
David's thing is that he's the sassy younger sibling. As a teenage boy, he's mostly motivated by impressing girls and sassing his dad. That's all there is to him. He acquits himself well, but the character's not super compelling at this point.
I actually found David to be one of the highlights of this episode, mainly because his character does not take any of this generational conflict seriously at all and seems to be totally checked out of the politics. David is just in this for himself and has his own selfish motivations. He's motivated a lot by his own horniness, as we see in multiple scenes. He just wants what he can get out of life. I appreciated that. I thought that was actually kind of funny. We also have Tom McGowan as Clifford Walker, Monty's TV sidekick.
Long Island's own Channel 35 presents the man who speaks his mind and yours, and the man who gave me my job and controls my very existence on the planet.
Tom is a character actor from New Jersey who's been appearing in movies and TV shows since the early 1990s. TV viewers remember him best for his recurring roles on Everybody Loves Raymond and Frasier. He's also been on Modern Family and Curb Your Enthusiasm. His movies include
Bad Santa, As Good as It Gets, The Last of the Mohicans, Ghost World, The Birdcage, and more.
Peter, any thoughts on Tom McGowan as Clifford Walker?
He's a toadying sidekick. That's all he is in this episode. There isn't really much extra texture in this episode for him.
Not really. There's not a second note to his character, but I kind of thought this was a character that had the show gone for longer, you could have really developed. Maybe Clifford is scheming behind the scenes to overtake Monty, or he secretly hates Monty. I thought you could make a really dark comedic character out of Clifford Walker. We also have Joyce Guy as Rita Simon, Monty's producer.
Thank you, white boy.
Joyce is a stage and screen actress from Montgomery, Alabama, who's been working in TV and film since the late 1980s. She had an extensive theater career before her first movie, which was Wes Craven's Shocker. Her TV credits include
Friends, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Grey's Anatomy, The Mentalist, Bones, How to Get Away with Murder, Desperate Housewives, and many more.
Her movies include The Santa Claus and Moneyball. Peter, what did you think of Joyce Guy as Rita Simon?
She's another character that I just found kind of confounding. How did she come to be the producer for a TV show run by a guy that she hates? What's the story here?
I was very curious about her too, but I was glad for her presence because she offered some variety during the scenes of Monty's show within a show. And
yeah, it's nice that there's somebody there to just quietly disapprove of it all.
those scenes where Monty's saying all this outrageous stuff in front of his audience to get his audience to applaud might be seen almost as appealing directly to the home audience watching this show, that we're supposed to be agreeing with Monty as he goes on all these rants because we have a studio audience cheering him on. So shouldn't we also be cheering him on? And so Rita is there to undercut him. And last but not least, we have to talk about China Cantner as Gina Campbell.
Look, I've only got a minute, okay? Greg thinks I'm in the car, and he'd be really mad if he knew I was talking to you.
China is the daughter of Grace Slick and Paul Cantner of Jefferson Airplane. She's probably best known for her stint as an MTV VJ. That's where I knew her from. But she had a TV and film career in the 90s as well, including a recurring role on Home Improvement. She retired from acting, got a degree in Christian theology from Loyola, and is now a substance abuse counselor. Peter, what did you think of China Cantner as Gina Campbell?
Gina is the Mike Meathead Stivic of the show, so she is the main opposition to Monty. Generally speaking, she and Winkler are equally bringing it. They are both respectively giving as good as they get, and there is a little bit of a spark when they are together, but I do still think that the show kind of misjudges it at times. Like the scene where Monty calls her a stripper and proceeds to slut-shame her for what feels like a very long time, that isn't really funny, even if she gets her own by saying he looks fat on TV. agree. I don't think we're necessarily supposed to be on his side in that scene, but I do think we are supposed to be laughing kind of at him and kind of with him, which I wasn't crazy about. I think that the scene where Gina is the one to try and broker a reconciliation between Monty and Greg doesn't really feel earned. It feels kind of out of nowhere, even if they tried to make it a thing of like, well, she's estranged from her own dad and she doesn't want that to happen with Greg.
I think China is given one of the more interesting parts in the show, and she does pretty good with it. I actually found some old publicity photos, and China Cantner and Henry Winkler are doing that pose where they've got their arms folded and they're back to back.
Now stay tuned for an all-new cross-armed opposites.
One thing I thought was very puzzling was that Monty was so surprised by her appearance, and there's a joke about her clothes, and I was like, her clothes? She's just dressed normal?
She's wearing flannel. That's very, very normal, especially for the 90s.
I was like, that was considered shocking, and she has a nose piercing, and then that brings about some jokes, and I was like, those are pretty common now, too. It's amazing how low the bar was for shocking fashion in the 1990s.
At least on family sitcoms.
And we have to talk about one guest star in the episode. Thora Birch guest stars as Anne Sherman.
Oh, are they gonna hate you?
Thora is an actress from Los Angeles who started working when she was very young. By the time she appeared on Monty, she had already guested on Amen and Doogie Howser, and she had been a regular on Parenthood and Day by Day. She was also in the movies Patriot Games, Hocus Pocus, and The Purple People Eater. Her breakthrough roles in American Beauty and Ghost World were still a few years away. Peter, what did you think of Thora Birch as Anne Sherman in this episode?
Thora Birch's appearance as Anne Sherman on this show is very fun. I think that they kind of wasted her and this premise by making it the B plot of an episode about something else. I think that the conflict between Monty and little Anne Sherman should have been the A plot, because I think that the premise of this little girl who knows exactly how to appeal to the audience at home and exactly how to get under Monty's skin, that's got comedic potential. That's got dramatic potential. That should have been the premise of this entire episode. And I think it's a little bit wasted.
This story actually ends once it's just getting interesting. We only get little glimpses of it, so I was a little bit frustrated by that. But it was still cool to see Thora Birch. I was like, oh, wow. I didn't recognize her, but then the credits came up at the end. I was like, oh my gosh, that's Thora Birch. As for the music in this show, the show's instrumental music is by Dan Folliart. Dan is a composer from Oklahoma who was active in television from the 1970s to the 2010s. He worked on Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, and Joni Loves Chachi, plus
Angie, Bosom Buddies, Brothers, Beverly Hills 90210, Home Improvement, Roseanne, Seventh Heaven, Newhart, and many more.
Peter, any thoughts on the music by Dan Folliart in this episode?
Considering the show is technically a contemporary of Full House, it's not overly obtrusive, especially during what's supposed to be the big emotional climax. So good on that front. I think it's an interesting stylistic choice that the show doesn't really have a theme song. The opening is various men and women on the street being like, this is my opinion on Monty, the TV host. I miss theme songs, but it's a neat variation on the format.
The first time I watched this, I didn't even recognize that there was a main title sequence because there are man on the street interviews sprinkled throughout this entire episode. So it took me a second viewing until I realized, oh, right, this is the main credits sequence. Okay. And I guess they would redo it every single week. Was that going to be the premise, that they would do the different man on the street segment every week, do you think?
I feel like that would get unwieldy fast. I assume it would be the same one.
As for our cultural and historical references in this episode, the episode's title is a reference to Here Comes the Sun, S-U-N, a song written by George Harrison for the Beatles' 1969 album Abbey Road. Even though it is now the Beatles' most streamed song, they didn't even release it as a single when it was new. Richie Havens had a hit with it in 1971, and I noticed they didn't license it for this episode.
Where would they have used it?
They could have used it instead of some of the dialogue, I guess. Monty Richardson himself is modeled on conservative commentator Rush Limbaugh. In addition to his long-running radio show, which ran from 1988 until his death in 2021, Limbaugh had a syndicated television series from 1992 to 1996.
That was really lame. And then, of course, here's our fourth monitor. I don't even know what's in it tonight because I know we're not going to get there. Now,
Monty's show is filmed on a set that looks very much like the one Rush used on his show. Monty was made at the peak of Rush Limbaugh's power, and this was when Rush Limbaugh's television show was syndicated all over the country. Have you ever even seen Rush Limbaugh's TV show, or has that completely disappeared from the collective memory?
I have never seen his TV show because I love myself, and I don't want to hurt myself.
It was just on everywhere. You couldn't avoid it. Since it's super topical, it doesn't get rerun anywhere. But at the time, you'd see parodies of it on The Simpsons or Beavis and Butthead. Beavis and Butthead did a whole parody of the Rush Limbaugh television show.
The death penalty, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Monty claims Clifford would leave him in a second if Donahue offered him a job. Cleveland-born TV host Phil Donahue is best known for his afternoon talk show that ran from 1967 to 1996. That show was winding down when this episode aired. Ironically, Donahue had created a template for daytime talk shows that was imitated by many others, and those newcomers eventually drove him off the air. How much of the Phil Donahue show have you seen, if anything?
Next to nothing. Yeah, I do not watch a lot of daytime talk shows.
At the time, it was also just ubiquitous, and there was tons of parodies of it on other shows.
Now, your last boyfriend got drunk, totaled your car with you in it.
It was difficult to avoid Phil Donahue. Monty addresses the spotted owl controversy.
We're going to take an impartial look at the spotted owl crisis in the Great Northwest.
In 1990, the federal government had to restrict logging in the Pacific Northwest in order to protect a threatened species of bird called the spotted owl. This was widely viewed as an example of environmentalism run amok, and seemingly every sitcom, comic strip, and stand-up comedian in America did spotted owl jokes for years.
There's something very quaint about that in the pre-9/11 era.
When people had the idea that history was over and we were concentrating on these more petty controversies, what people didn't understand at the time was that the spotted owl was seen as representative of the health of the Pacific Northwest ecosystem, and protecting them was protecting the whole ecosystem. But it got boiled down to, oh, we're going out of our way to protect these dumb birds. We should chop these trees down.
We should just kill all the birds. Who cares?
Monty warns us about some guy with a bomb in his burnous who belongs to a cult and believes that America is the great Satan sneaking into our country. During the Islamic Revolution of 1978 and 1979, the Ayatollah Khomeini of Iran famously referred to America as the great Satan.
It was in fact during November of 1979 that he first started using in his speeches his now infamous phrase to describe the US. Americans are the great Satan, the wounded snake.
A burnous is simply a hooded cloak worn by Arab and Berber men in North Africa. And as you pointed out, Peter, Monty's speech is filled with anti-Arab dog whistles. How do you feel that these references play in 2026?
Oh man, probably even worse now. I will say it was interesting hearing those because I guess I kind of had this idea that Islamophobia was not as prevalent prior to 9/11. And I think that's still technically true, but in the sense that a rectangle isn't technically a square. It was less prevalent, but it was still there, and I was naive to think otherwise.
I can tell you, as someone who lived through the 80s and 90s, it was still very, very prevalent. So this would have been pretty typical of the time. It was weird hearing those words come out of Henry Winkler, because Henry is normally such a genial and charitable and kind person in real life. It's weird hearing him say all this hateful stuff. Monty jokingly announces the Find a Blind Date for Janet Reno contest.
We're going to be right back with the Find a Blind Date for Janet Reno contest.
Janet Reno was a lawyer from Florida who served as Attorney General under President Bill Clinton from 1993 to 2001. During that time, Reno's appearance was much commented upon in the press and became a popular subject for comedians. For her part, Reno took it in stride, even appearing on SNL during one of their Janet Reno's Dance Party sketches. Reno died in 2016 at the age of 78. Peter, what did you think of the Janet Reno jokes in Monty?
Man, those are just spectacularly dated, huh? Not just the jokes being about Janet Reno, but also just the idea that society at the time was just like, this woman isn't hot? I am confused by this?
That was the basic idea. It's kind of hard to believe. It makes the 90s seem longer ago. Monty accuses David of watching Oprah instead of his own father's television show.
You were watching Oprah, weren't you?
Oprah Winfrey was one of several talk show hosts who followed the Donahue template and managed to beat Phil Donahue at his own game. Her wildly popular daytime series aired from 1986 to 2011. Peter, did you manage to see any of the Oprah Winfrey show?
No, I did not. Everything I know about Oprah, I basically absorbed through osmosis, through like parodies and the like.
Me too. I didn't watch a heck of a lot of daytime television, so the Oprah Winfrey show was not one of my favorites. Monty receives a call from Greenpeace asking for a donation.
Oh, Greenpeace. Yeah, a contribution? I would love to talk to you too, but we just sat down to dinner, and you know how whale tastes if you let it get too cold.
He jokes about his family eating whale meat. Greenpeace is an environmental activism group that started in Vancouver in 1969. The organization has protested commercial whaling, but that's just one of their many causes. Others include
climate change, deforestation, overfishing, and the proliferation of nuclear technology.
And Peter, I felt this was one of those times when we were being manipulated to root for Monty because he gets a call from Greenpeace, and I think we're supposed to hate Greenpeace and be like, yeah, stick it to Greenpeace, Monty. But what did you think of that scene?
This is a scene where I do think we're supposed to be more amused used by Monty than at Monty's expense, so yeah.
And I think it would be pretty unlikely that Greenpeace would call people randomly at their house. I don't think they were cold calling people, so this feels like a straw man kind of argument. Now, this was a weird aspect of the show. Greg says he got David a De Gaulle biography, which is his euphemism for a pornographic magazine.
I got you that De Gaulle biography you wanted.
What would I want with a De Gaulle by... Oh, okay. Hey, he photographs great.
Yeah.
He just gives it to his little brother in front of their parents.
Yes, Charles de Gaulle was a French military leader and statesman who was a decorated officer in World War I and led the Free French Forces in World War II. He later served as president of France, retiring just a year before his death in 1970. I think the joke here is that France was once known for its scandalous art and literature because the censorship laws there were much more lax than in America. But what did you think of all that de Gaulle biography stuff?
I think it was mostly just meant to be a euphemistic joke because you wouldn't hear De Gaulle biography and think, ah, yes, girly magazine. But I think it's kind of undercut by the fact that he just gives his little brother the pornographic magazine in front of their parents, and he starts going through it in front of their parents.
And then there's a joke later where the mom says, put it with your dad's De Gaulle biographies. So does Monty have a stash of pornographic magazines in the house as well? What the hell is going on in this house? Greg says that Gina was selling pieces of the Berlin Wall.
I met her in Germany. She was selling pieces of the Berlin Wall.
After the reunification of Germany in 1990, the Berlin Wall was almost totally dismantled. Only 2% of it remains standing today as a reminder. Some of the wall was recycled into road material, but many pieces were indeed sold as souvenirs. Greg says that learning to cook is utilitarian in a Thoreauian sense.
It's utilitarian in a Thoreauian sense.
What was that word?
19th century American author Henry David Thoreau is best remembered today for his 1854 book Walden, in which he describes his experiences while living self-sufficiently for 2 years in a cabin near Walden Pond in Massachusetts.
2 years? Shut up.
Peter, what did you think of all the Thoreau references in this episode? Did you find that amusing?
Mostly I found it confusing. Maybe it's just a product of the time it was made when a man couldn't be like, I cook because it's a useful skill to have. No, he has to be like, it's a utilitarian in a Thoreauian sense. Okay, dude. Okay.
Yeah, it was odd that he had to justify it in that way. Gina says,
not only are you president, you're also a client.
She's referring to an inescapable ad campaign for the Hair Club for Men that aired on TV frequently in the 1990s. The company's founder, Cy Sperling, appeared at the end of each ad and would say his famous line,
and by the way, I'm not only the Hair Club president, but I'm also a client.
Sperling died in 2020. He was 78 years old. Peter, were you familiar with those commercials? Did you recognize what was being parodied there?
I did not. It was gibberish to me until you explained it.
It was like the spotted owl thing. Everybody was doing Cy Sperling jokes for years in the 1990s, but I think that stuff has fallen down the collective memory hole. And Monty refers to Gina as Gypsy Rose Lee. Rose Louise Hovick was a burlesque entertainer and stripper from Seattle, whose 1957 memoir was very famously adapted into a successful stage musical. She died at the age of 59 in 1970. And what I wondered was, is that the only famous stripper that you could reference in a conversation? Is that the only one that people know?
She probably is the most famous one. The only one I can think of besides off the top of my head would be Lily St. Cyr, who got name dropped in Rocky Horror Picture Show.
God bless Lily St. Cyr.
Yes!
Sally Rand, that's a famous stripper too.
And Blaze Starr, that would have been an interesting one. But no, he went for the classic. So, Peter, were there any outstanding primetime fashions in Monty, Here Comes the Sun?
This being the 90s, lots of flannel, lots of baggy shirts and pants, but I really want to give a shout out to Anne Sherman's outfit that she's wearing. She's introduced wearing this very classic, cute little girl's Sunday best dress. She's got the bow in her hair. She looks like a Victorian doll come to life. I think that's great because it works with the fact that she knows what she's doing. She is playing the cute little girl to the hilt to make Monty look bad. Obviously, she would not dress like that on a regular basis. Nobody would. It's great.
That was pretty funny. Otherwise, I felt the clothing in this episode was pretty bland. And I was surprised by the extreme reactions to what China Cantner is wearing because that wouldn't even raise an eyebrow today.
Oh, on that topic, I do want to bring up this weird thing that she's wearing in the final segment of the episode. It's like this long lace jacket. It's weird because I have never seen anybody wear anything like that ever.
She might have gotten that at MTV. Maybe she was just rummaging through the lost and found bin at MTV and she brought that to the studio with her. Peter, Peter, did you have any other observations that you wanted to make about this episode?
So the version of this episode that I watched, it was right off of a taped recording or something, and as a result, it had all of these amazing ads on them. We've got Pizza Hut, we've got Empire Today, Midas Auto Repair, Hall's Cough Tablets, Playtex Tampons, extremely self-serious promos for 90210 and Melrose Place.
One of the girls will get a shocking surprise.
You're pregnant.
An all-new 90210. Then, Jane gets a videotape that shows her lover in bed with someone else.
The Simpsons. Specifically, the episode with the nerds, you know the one. Red Lobster, Adventures of Briscoe County Jr., Beethoven's Second, and also a very sweet Henry Winkler promotion for Education First. I did not list all of them, but those were just the ones that really stuck with me.
Those were interesting. Sometimes when you watch these old episodes, watching the commercials is sometimes the most interesting part. It was weird to see that Fox was giving such big promotion to the Simpsons Homer Goes to College episode, since that was already a rerun. That episode was already old by the time this aired, and it was nice seeing the public service announcement with Henry Winkler. I don't know if all the stars of Fox television shows were doing that at the time, but yeah, he does a little promo for childhood education. So, Peter, I will ask that age-old timeless question. Was this episode any good?
As I have said earlier, I think this episode kind of misjudged the All in the Family formula. I think that making the Archie Bunker type, Glenn Beck, Rush Limbaugh, professional, agitator, political type was a mistake. I think that Henry Winkler does an able job with the character. I think just on premise, it's not very well thought out. I'm not really surprised that this TV show didn't last very long and kind of fell by the wayside in terms of shows that people remember. I am happy that Winkler got back into acting. I will say that my favorite thing about watching this episode was learning more about the 90s based on what people thought were worth commenting on at the time.
I don't see Monty as a sustainable show. It only lasted a few weeks on the Fox schedule, and I can't imagine it going for years. Henry Winkler has said that this show was important to him because he was getting back into acting after being away from it, and he saw it as a learning experience. So I'm glad that he was able to do that. I don't think Monty was ever going to be a hit show. I can't imagine it ever catching on. So it was not painful. At first I thought, oh, it's going to be about a Rush Limbaugh type character, so this show is going to be painful to get through. And I didn't find it painful. That's the best thing I can say, was that I did not suffer during Monty.
It didn't feel like it was made by people who are Rush Limbaugh fans, so that's nice, I guess.
Have you ever tried to sit through an episode of that Last Man Standing with Tim Allen? Try watching that, and that show is pretty torturous. So, Peter, how can people keep up with us and find out about all the wonderful things that we are doing?
Listeners can follow us on thesedaysofhours.libsyn.com.
And they can email us with questions, comments, and concerns at thesedaysofhourspodcast@gmail.com. So, Peter, what are we going to talk about the next time we get together?
Next time, in 1981, Aaron Moran appeared in a film produced by none other than Roger Corman. It is set in a science fiction future where the crew of a space vessel are marooned on a hostile alien planet. It's called Galaxy of Terror.
Prepare yourself for the ultimate battle. Galaxy of Terror.
AKA Mind Warp, an infinity of terror.
Peter, I am so excited to have Aaron Moran back on the show. So see you later, alligator.
In a while, crocodile.
Little darling, it's been a long, long, lonely winter. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. And I say, it's all right.
And by the way, I'm not only the heckler president, but I'm also a client.